Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Now we will discuss the BMW E38, a classic car that is still widely loved today. The BMW E38 is the third generation of the BMW 7 Series, produced from 1994 to 2001, known for its blend of luxury, sporty performance, and advanced technology for its time. The model offered a wide range of engines, from inline 6-cylinders to V8 South and V12s, as well as short and long wheelbase options. Some of the first advanced features to arrive on the E38 included curtain airbags, satellite navigation, and integrated television, making it a very well-equipped executive sedan. It was someone at BMW who justified the all-new E38 7 Series, launched 40 years ago this year, by saying that customers in that class would buy a car for the second time, not a third. Whatever the official statement, the previous E3 to 7 Series, launched in late 1986, had reached the end of its run. Of course, it was still a very good car, and the 1992 replacement of the ancient M30 straight-six engine, launched in 1968, with the all-new M60 32-valve V8, turned it into a remarkably good car. Coupled with a new 5-speed automatic transmission, plus the usual manual transmission option, the 7 Series offered something its rivals didn't. The 1994 E38 shared little with the E32, although the engine and transmission were essentially modified. The 218 bhp 3-liter V8 was good enough. The 286 bhp 4-liter was different, and the 326 bhp M73 V1 felt underwhelming when the 740i was so powerful. By the E32, the 740i had made the 300 bhp 5.0-liter 750i obsolete. The single-camper bank V12 and the old 4-speed automatic transmission were already looking a bit dated. The revised V12 and 5-speed automatic did improve the 750i's performance, but ultimately, it was the 740i and its superior fuel economy that won the day. The E32 was a handsome car, though a bit rear-heavy, and its four-separate headlights looked very dated, reminiscent of the E36 era. The E38 repeated the trick BMW pulled when it replaced the original E213 series with the E30. Everything was more or less the same, but it looked sleeker and more streamlined. Some said it looked bland, and there was some merit to that. It was indeed more restrained and elegant than the W1 for OS class, which even Mercedes considered a bit too big. The 1994 Audi A8 was launched around the same time. It became the first successful large Audi. Aside from its engine, the E38 didn't take anything from the E32. Replacing the independent semi-trailing arm rear suspension was a completely new multi-link setup that was unlike the E36 Z-axle or E31 8 series setups at the front. A new version of the familiar McPherson strut layout was used, and unusually, BMW retained the old-style steering box as opposed to rack and pinion. They would also use this on the V8 version of the 1996 E395 series. Canvas and iBus electronics were used, and the fuel tank was moved to the area under the rear seat. Oddly, they used a steel tank as opposed to the plastic tank used on the E34 and E36A. This would later become a thorn in the side of E38 owners, as the tank did tend to rust around the seams. In addition to the 3 petrol engines, a diesel engine was also introduced in 1994. The dreaded 7 to 5 TDS. This was undoubtedly a stopgap. The M51 produced 143 bhp, which was sufficient for the 5 Series, and even then, it wasn't much power. In the E38, this engine was a drag to maneuver, although it was fine on the motorway. Much better performance would come later. The first significant changes to the E38 came in 1996 when both V8 engines were replaced and new models were added. The 730i and 740i were replaced by the 735i and 740i. The new M62 engine was a major revision of the previous M60. Alusil bores were phased in to replace Nicosil coating. A single row timing chain replaced the previous duplex, and an ECU-controlled thermostat ensured quick warm-up and kept the engine warm during partial load driving for better fuel efficiency. The latter two changes became problematic again in later years as the cars aged, with timing chain failures and complex cooling system issues. The 735i produced to 135 bhp, while the 740i now had a 4.4-liter engine with the same claimed to 186 bhp, but more torque. The difference in road performance between the 740i and 750i was slimmer than before, but the V12 car had the advantage in terms of turbine-like power delivery. On the other hand, the automatic transmission gets a new Steptronic system for manual shifting if you prefer.
What was truly new was the 728i, a new base model with the 193 bhp M50 straight 6. This engine was a longer stroke, alloy block development of the 1992 Vanos M50 2.5-liter engine, displacing to 0.8 liters. Performance-wise, it was excellent, and many owners of previous 730is switched to the 728i when the time came. In Europe and the UK, performance was good enough to make the 735i almost irrelevant. It was a good car, sure, but if you were going for a V8, you wanted a full-fat 740i with plenty of power under the accelerator. Late 1998 marked the E38's only facelift. The headlights and taillights were slightly restyled, with new alloy wheels, slimmer front turn signals, a more pronounced front grille, and some minor changes to the interior trim. Mechanically, a new ABS system was installed, resembling the revised E46 and E39 with ASC or DSC options, and the engines were revised again. The M52 engine in the 728i received Tavano engines, while the V8 M62 received a Tavano engine and a new water-cooled alternator. The V12 in the 750i remained largely unchanged. A sport model was also released for most engine sizes except the 725 TDS, and this included M Sport suspension, 189-inch style 37 and parallel alloy wheels, clear gauges, contour or sport seats, and high-gloss black shadowline exterior trim to replace the chrome-style stainless steel trim. This model also featured a black headliner and darker wood interior trim. Xenon headlights became an option shortly after. We've covered the E38 diesel engine before, and while the 725 TD DS lasted until early 2000. The new 730D arrived in early 1998 with the new M57 3.0 diesel engine and 180 bhp. Power was increased to 190 bhp in 1999, but the big news was the 740D. BMW wanted to beat Mercedes to the punch with the first twin-turbo V8 diesel, and they did just that in late 1998 with the M67-powered 740D. This engine was a prototype for the 2002 E65 version, but the results were impressive. Using a cast-iron cylinder block and alloy cylinder head design and other components from the 3.0D M47, BMW produced fewer than 3,000 of these 245 bhp cars, producing 560 Nm of torque, more than the V8 M5 and 750i, a top speed of 150 miles per hour, and better fuel economy than the 740i. With common rail technology, this engine was truly remarkable, and its high-revving final drive meant it could travel long distances on the motorway, with 100 miles per hour at just 2,600 revolutions per minute. In 2000, the E38 was a huge success, and the E65 was in the final stages of development. However, The E38 was further enhanced with a new satellite navigation system, body-colored rocker panels and lower bumpers, and the option of adaptive cruise control. Finally, BMW tested 15.750 long wheelbase cars in Berlin starting in May 2000. Running on gasoline and hydrogen switchable, the standard M73 5.4 V12 engine produced 200 bhp with hydrogen, giving similar performance to the 7-8i. This V12 engine used a different inlet manifold with hydrogen injection ports, and a hydrogen tank was installed in the trunk just behind the rear seat bulkhead, holding 140 liters at -253 degrees Celsius. The 750HL also used a 7 HP fuel cell as an auxiliary power unit to enhance the complex electrical system. These cars were then tested again in Dubai, Milan, Brussels, Los Angeles, and Tokyo during the 2001 Clean Energy Tour before being returned to BMW. The E65 replaced the E38 in late 2001, and everyone has their own opinion on it. Me. I quite admire the E65's grit and think the original pre-facelift 745i will achieve cult status in the near future. The E38 was the last traditional 7 Series, but time hasn't been kind to used cars. The early M60s were clearly more robust, using much of the proven E32 and E34 technology, things that plagued later cars, like problems with timing chain guides, cooling systems, ABS modules, and instrument panel pixels, rarely bothered those early cars. Ask anyone about the reliability of the E36 versus the E46 in its old age, and you can see a pattern forming. Legacy and impact. The enduring presence of the E38. Today, a truly good, rust-free car is worth owning. It remains a great car to drive, and as long as it's clean and factory standard, so no odd wheels, springs, etc., the classic look remains. Buy from a pan-coming States or Japan, as European and Midwestern cars will be too rusty. My picks. A very nice M60 740i 4.0 or a newer 750i Sport. Both can be had in good condition for the price of a late model F33 to 8i, and who's going to turn when one of those cars passes by. A top speed of 150 miles per hour, and better fuel economy than the 740i. With common rail technology, this engine was truly remarkable, and its high-revving final drive meant it could travel long distances on the motorway, with 100 miles per hour at just 2,600 revolutions per minute.